there will be a lot of disappointed people. But I think this is as clear an indication as it could possibly be that you all did the right thing in creating these grant programs, in providing priority to the State Water Plan Fund, to starting the momentum for funding water adequately. So hats off to you all, because we wouldn't even be where we are and we wouldn't know this need is out there as specifically without your work. So also a takeaway from this that occurs to me, to quote Police Chief Brody in the movie Jaws, we're gonna need a bigger boat, right? So hopefully this will incentivize additional infusions of money into feeding these needs. We are in the process of developing the criteria to evaluate. You provided guidance in the statute, that is what we're using. And so we are hopeful to be awarding grants within the first quarter. We didn't realize we would have hundreds of them to go through without additional staff yet. So we're definitely going to be prioritizing this, and this is, I think, really revealing and really important. There is a lot of need out there. Now, we have not vetted these applications to make sure they're all eligible for exactly what they ask for. But when they first came in, there was kind of a glance at them to sort of get an idea, are these municipalities or special districts related to water, right? If not, they can't even apply. I think there was one that came in from an individual, right? So a lot of the first glance made it look like there wasn't an immediate disqualification. So we're not looking at these numbers going down dramatically. We are also coordinating with the Department of Transportation, with the Build Kansas Fund and their grant opportunities for infrastructure, to see if there may be any that they can provide help for, that would, you know, get some of these folks some help, because we certainly can't provide all of it. So that's the exciting news. It's a success, but boy, you know, we're headed in the right direction, but we really, really are going to need some more help with this. And when I say we, I mean the state. I mean all those people that applied for help. So next slide, please. This is just an at a glance. I'm not going to go through this. This is the page that is in our annual report that you all received. It's the Water Authority's annual report that includes the recommendations for FY25 expenditures for the State Water Plan Fund. And the governor has echoed those. So governor's recommendations are basically the same as the Water Authority recommended. Next slide. I think you skipped one. Nope, maybe not. Okay. This is a bit of a breakdown. I'm not going to go through all the fine print here, but this teases out what the Water Authority recommended for the expenditure of the additional $18 million for FY25. So those are in the governor's recommendations as well as the Water Authority's recommendations. And again, there's a little more information about those programs in the annual report. So next slide. Oh, that's the one I was going to mention. That's what the annual report looks like. And the Water Authority is required every year to provide this. Their main purpose, the reason they were created, the most important reason they were created, was to provide advice to the legislature and the governor and the director of the water office on policy and programs and the water plan and how to spend the State Water Plan Fund. So that includes all of those things, and I encourage you to take a look through there. That just came out with the beginning of legislative session, so that's hot off the press. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Questions? Representative Blex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Owen, for doing all the hard work, and I certainly applaud you and your staff for trying to deal with all those applications. There'll be some midnight oil, looks like, and it does send a message, I think, to everybody in the state that this need is long overdue, and we certainly need a lot more money, you know, probably in the neighborhood of 85 to 100 million annually to catch up on some of these projects. But I guess my question would be to you, looking at the division between Kansas Department of Ag, Department of Health, and the Water Office, which certainly, you know, that was my intent. You've done a good job there. I think the committee's intent, too, is to see all three of those major agencies reflected. But in the future, when you sit down for budget request, and we're looking at roughly 10 million for Kansas Department of Ag and almost 6 million for Environment and 2 million for Kansas Water, how will you guys, as three agencies, divvy that pot up? Because I see this as this program grows, particularly with small town issues and the drought that we're dealing with and water treatment, that KDHE request for water issues, there may be a lot. Could this reverse, say, in another year or two, to 10 million to say to KDHE and 5 million Department of Ag or vice versa? How are you working that out? I mean, I know you started out with a real quick start, and I applaud you for doing what you've done, and it looks like you've done a great job, certainly the intent of the committee, but what do you see in the future?
Well, it is absolutely open to change. And so this doesn't set any particular percentages for any of the agencies. The mindset, to oversimplify it, the mindset for FY24 was we need to work quick because we had to determine what the requests were going to be and, you know, kind of agree as a group. And then it had to go through, the transfers had to go through the Finance Council. So that was going to add some time. So we were looking at what could we spend the money on quickly. That was kind of the driving force for FY24. And so there will be varying considerations that happen from year to year. So
thank you for that clarification.
Representative Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple questions, if you'd indulge me. Appreciate it. Well, first, I just like to, looking at FY25, I appreciate you have a very project-focused mindset when I just look at the bullet points. Mm-hmm. I think that reflects what at least I was interested in seeing from the Water Authority. So let them know I appreciate their work and looking at these specific things we can work on. Just a couple of questions. I heard you say for the grant assistance, you didn't have to add any FTEs, right? You had open positions that we just funded?
correct.
Okay, appreciate that. I know KDHE has their own non-state water plan funded small town grant program that's one-time money. Are you able to coordinate, as we have two grant programs doing similar things, is there any cooperation, or I know they're different applications, but I just want to make sure that we're cooperating between the two agencies, and Leo's jumping in his seat back there.
I don't even have to ask him.
Good morning, Chairman Minix and committee members. My name's Leo Henning, Deputy Secretary and Director of Environment at the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. To answer your question, I'll give you a little bit of history. The first $10 million that we came out with for small towns was Spark money, and that money was a one-time deal. We had $10 million for that program. We received $85 million worth of requests from small towns. So we knew we were short. So when we had this additional funding that had to go out fairly quickly, we were able to carve out the $3.2 million for some additional towns to receive some help. We've taken this to the governor's office, and she has put $10 million in the budget for KDHE to continue this program into the future. So there is an additional $10 million. They saw the benefit of the program. They know we need to invest in our small towns, and it's in the governor's budget for as a SGF right now.
Thank you. And then one last question for Director Owen. On the one-time money to Rattlesnake Creek, appreciate the innovative solutions piece, but is all that going to flow through the Division of Conservation, or what kind of guardrails are on that $7 million? Because I don't know that there's a specific program authorized, you know, to build an augmentation system, I guess, to just ask the question. And maybe Department of Ag can answer that, but what's the framework on that money?
I would definitely need to defer that to the Department of Ag, and Kelsey, you want to give it a try? Earl is presenting somewhere else this morning, or he would be on the hook, so.
Good morning, committee. Kelsey Olson, Deputy Secretary of the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Representative Titus, would you please repeat your question?
Yeah, for the $7 million, it's listed as one-time money to help with the Rattlesnake Creek impairment, and it's kind of got a laundry list of things. Augmentation infrastructure is one of the things. I would just be curious, I don't know that there's a program in place. I understand you could move money through CREP or other existing conservation programs, but I'm curious of the guardrails for how that money might be used in that area.
Thank you for that question. We are actually still very much working through what that looks like. As you may be aware, there is some interest from local efforts to bring forward some plans to help either retire or lease water rights in that specific area. And we would like to allocate some of the funding to help support those efforts. But the specific details around that retirement plan and what's being developed are still very much in the works. And that is the meeting that Earl is taking this week to meet with that group. So we don't have those guardrails established, but have thought some about what that would look like, as this is a one-time application.
Appreciate it. When you, Mr. Chairman, if we could get an update on that, when you guys have some more idea what that looks like, I think it'd be informative.
Yep, we'd be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Director Owen. I'm just curious about these applications that you received, the grant applications. Do you have an idea of like the average of what the requests were? Were they lots of money? Were they little amounts? Or how does that break down? Is it, okay. Yeah. Do you remember like what the lowest request was and maybe what the biggest request amount? Just ballpark, just curious.
Hi, Victoria Asbury, Kansas Water Office. As many of you will remember, each of the grants has a cap on the amount that could be requested. So for water projects, that was $8 million, and we did receive some $8 million requests. And then for the technical assistance grant, the cap was $1 million, but we have received applications like as small as like $30,000. So it is quite a range from the highest cap to the lowest request.
Any other questions? I guess I would make a few comments, and I'd appreciate any corrections from the director if I misspeak something here. We had a very, very aggressive time frame on 2302. I was told multiple times this needed to start in 24 or after. And we got everything kind of lined up for July 1 of 23. We put a lot of pressure on these agencies, and in my opinion, they've responded extremely well. I wanted to hopefully get this process moving as quickly as possible, because with all the presentations we received over the last 3 years, we saw the demand or the need for an investment in water here in the state of Kansas. And I think the agencies and all the other groups, the water authority is basically a grassroots level that gives input through this system. And sitting here right now, I think the system's worked extremely well. To me, the glaring problem here is we're a little short on funding for all the needs and demands here across the state. And I've said repeatedly, it's just a beginning. And hopefully in the future, some of these things like additional staffing and KDHE or Divisional Water Resources can be addressed within their budgets. I believe that we've illustrated a definite need for additional services here in the state of Kansas. That's just my personal opinion. And I'd like to throw this out to the committee for your comments on how you see things going. Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up question from, based on what he said. Do you think all of these requests, is it one time? Like, can we get caught up if we invest enough over the next couple of years, or will it just snowball? Do you have any idea? Like, because we are behind in funding because we did not
Yes.
fund the water plan for so long.
And even if that $8 million a year had been invested every year, we'd still be way behind.
So be way behind.
I mean, but what I would mention to sort of address your question is this looks like the first of a series of tidal waves to me, or a growing tidal wave. And the reason I say that is because this application period was 6 weeks long, and it was over the holidays. And that much came in, that much request came in that period of time. So I think we can just expect, I mean, obviously, the total of about 380 million combined, minus the 12 plus 5 we have to give out, that remainder may roll over to the next year. And so even if you took what has been appropriated for the grants now, times 5, it wouldn't cover what we already have asked for. So I see, you know, the need may not be this great every single year, but I don't think this is all we're going to see, if that helps answer your question. And one thing I ought to add is, in terms of an update with what, and thank you, Chairman Minix, for your very kind comments. The agencies, I'm really fortunate to work with folks in KDHE and KDA, that we all work really well together and very, very cooperatively. This would have been a nightmare if we could not work together well. And so I feel very fortunate to have super good partners at the other state agencies, and a lot of support from the governor's office. I was also going to mention that we have also contracted with a consultant, with Salesforce and another consultant, to create a software system to help administer these grants. So we've got the suggestion and the advice from Department of Commerce, because they have a lot of grant activity. And we have that building. We're building that, that mechanism to help administer, monitor, you know, handle the grant program that will help tremendously. But it wasn't going to be up and running in time for FY24. So I just thought I'd add that we should, that our ability to address this, I think, will be more robust as of the second year of the programs.
Representative Fairchild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was said last year in regards to 2302 and the funding increase for the state's water programs that it was necessary because we were way behind other states as far as what other states are spending on their water programs. I was just wondering if you could give information on where we're at now as far as the amount that we're spending on our state's water programs in comparison to what other states are spending.
I would be very happy to try to look up some actual number comparisons, but the conferences that I go to, the Western States Water Council, where there are representatives of water officials from all over the western states that are much like central and western Kansas in their water needs, hundreds of millions a year. I mean, they dwarf us. It's this additional 18 million is very appreciated and very hopeful, but it gets us nowhere near where some of these other states are. I just don't even know what to say. I mean, Earl and I will sit in these conference meetings and they'll talk about, we had $60 million dedicated to this particular project. We had, 100 and some million come from this. Colorado dedicates all of their sports betting revenue for their water plan, which is millions and millions of dollars. So we're not even in the game.
But wouldn't you have to look at it as more of a percentage of the budget than the actual dollar amount? Because, I mean, I don't know how much revenue these states generate compared to what we generate.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. But I would assume the Dakotas probably aren't too far ahead of us. I don't know. I'm getting out of my lane. But I would be, if you'd like some comparative numbers, we can try to track them down. But in general, we're nowhere near where a lot of these states do. And revenue is a reflection of your priority, right? For example, in Colorado, their economy is recreation heavy. They do have a lot of ag. So between ag and recreation, they have to have good support for water. So there's support from all their different economy-based areas to say this, we got to do this. We got to do what we need to do. And with their shrinking supplies, with the drought and climate change and the Colorado River and all of that mess, their reality creates the need, so they find the revenue.
I'm going to ask one of our other team members here, Heather. You did some research on that same question that Representative Fairchild just asked last year. You remember the amounts for some of the states? I believe Colorado was in the 125 million range, where we're at, let's say, 55. I believe the North and South Dakota is one of the states dedicated half of their Bakken oil revenue to education and the other half to water. That was the two priorities with their legislature. And on water issues, you're talking flood control and other things. That amount was about 160 million per year. You get to Arizona, Nevada, those western states, that amount is far more. It's very hard to compare one state with another because some of it's hidden within different departments and stuff, but that was the kind of general thing that legislative research came up with last year, as I remember. Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Owens. In my district, I have a lot of these towns less than 1,000 population. And I think all of them have high priority problems, but I'm not sure if the application they've turned in is exactly shovel ready. Could you flesh that out just a little bit for us? Thank you.
Shovel ready is one of a variety of criteria that helps sort of evaluate. It's not required, it's not a mandate that what you request be shovel ready. In fact, that's sort of the point of the technical assistance grant, right? Because a lot of communities and districts don't know. They haven't yet defined, they don't have an engineer, they don't have, a planner, they don't have somebody who can actually do grant writing. So they actually need to get in the game. They need help to even get in the game. we have some grant, some water project grant applications that are either, that may be characterized and presented in a phased way. In other words, this is our whole ask, this is what we hope to do over a period of time, but phase one would be great, right? If you can just fund phase one, you don't have to fund all 4 phases. Do you know what I'm saying? So having a completely shovel-ready project is not a make or break. Does that help?
Yes, I think so. And the engineering fees, the mayor came to me and said, that's a hurdle. Is that part of the shovel ready? If they have this, the engineering done and they have, you know, what they can afford done. So the shovel ready term may be a moving definition
Right.
based on need, if you will.
So if they submit a grant application for the water projects grant, then shovel ready is one of a variety of factors that we will consider, but it's, again, it's not a make or break. So I think particularly with the FY24 choices that were made for the 18 million, shovel ready was very important because we had money we needed to spend in FY24. That will not be as critical for the grant programs going forward.
Thank you. I can really bring that home and explain. Thank
Okay.
you.
Representative Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. And sorry about my voice. It's really hoarse this morning. It sounds like we're going to need to think. I just don't see in our budget, just talks that we're going to go up as much as these other states. But I was looking at the part, I think it's on page 5, the multiplier of the grant partnership support. And would you see a correlation between, you know, you've got 350,000 there. Could that get 3 or 4 million pulled into different projects from the federal money? And if that was $1 million, could that get 20 million pulled? Like, is there a correlation that you could see of if we invested in that, we could pull down a lot more funds, get good at that? Would you see a correlation there at all?
I can't tell you what the cost share comparison would be, but yes, that's the whole point, is that there is a massive amount of federal money right now, and that's what that particular support is supposed to access. Now, the federal grants, the BIL money and Inflation Reduction Act money for infrastructure does require cost share. Our grants do not. And I might just take a moment to say I'm really proud of the agencies for deciding that, because that wasn't in statute, but we said we don't want to cost share. So there is the Build Kansas Fund through the Department of Transportation, through the Infrastructure Hub. That money was appropriated last year to provide cost share money for applicants to apply for all that federal monies. Because the problem with accessing the federal money was, the biggest problem was communities didn't have the cost share, right? So there's now and this isn't 2302, this isn't Water Office, but through the Department of Transportation, there's the Build Kansas Fund, and that's what it's for. The idea being that there's a real push to try to access this federal money because there is such a multiplier available. And it differs from grant to grant, and it differs whether it's from the EPA or whether it's from the Bureau of Reclamation. But that's the point, that there is a significant multiplier with the federal money. It's just getting to it has been the problem. Is that?
I appreciate that feedback. It was just, that's how my mind was thinking, and just wanted to confirm that it's a high possibility that if we invested more in that and and could see kind of what our investment equaled each year, we could keep building off of that and keep doing good at that. So thank you for your presentation.
Excuse me.
I guess to follow up, Division Chief Henning, can you give us have there been some programs that some of this money or some of the other funds from the state have been leveraged against federal? And what those rough, are they like 90-10, 80-20?
I guess I'll talk about the bill money, if that's okay. We have formula money that comes down from bill for this state revolving loan program. And if I get mixed up here, I'm going to have Tom come up here to talk because he is the expert in this. But we receive money to loan out to communities with a forgiveness portion. And it depends on what bucket the money comes to us as, whether it's clean water for wastewater treatment plants, or is it for drinking water? Is it for just a regular loan, or is it to work on emerging contaminants or lead pipes? So EPA puts it into buckets for us. And based on what bucket that is in, depends on how much of the loan is forgiven. So a lot of the loans are 50% forgiven. You have a $10 million project, we'll lend you the $10 million, and $5 million is forgiven. Other ones are 100%. If it's the lead pipe removal for drinking water lines, it's 100% forgiven. So, and I think I'm right. Yep. He's nodding. So, anyway, it depends on the bucket and how it's coming to us. But it is, I mean, if you get 100% forgiveness on your loan, it is basically a grant. So, but does that help? I mean.
Yes, that helps a lot. Representative Getz, that's the kind of leverage we were talking about. And part of the aim of 2302 was to provide some seed money to be able to leverage some of these federal funds. Thank you, Leo. Representative Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a general comment to you asked for sort of a general overview, and Representative Getz asked a good question. I think as we were working through the bill, one of the thoughts I had was, the 5-year sunset, there's a fiscal conservancy element there, but a lot of this we didn't know how many applications we were going to get. We didn't really know what the demand was. Maybe the money's not in the right pools or the right programs, and so I would really encourage the department, to think about this as we move through the next 5 years, the water office and the agencies, because we probably didn't get it perfect the first time as far as the allocations and what you can do well. It may turn out in the long run that maybe KDHE should just have an SGF fund to help small towns, and maybe we should just do grant assistance through the water office for planning, the technical assistance part. I don't know what that'll look like in 5 years, but I think this is our opportunity to try this out and kind of figure out where the demand is and what we can do well, and we can build on that when we review the program. So.
Any other questions? Representative Blacks.
More of a comment, I guess. We opened a lot of doors with this committee, and I think we've made a lot of people aware of the issues. My favorite saying, decisions about water is made in drought, and we certainly capitalized on that. And even in my country, 42 inches of rainfall has not been falling for the last 2 years, so it's brought a lot of support. This will be my 8th year, and I don't think I've ever seen. We've got really, really good chemistry on this committee as far as people working and ability, and we certainly have a good working relationship with the state agencies and staff. Has been a tremendous, and like Representative Titus said, we didn't get that together real good. We put it together real fast, and I think we caught leadership in both House and Senate not really prepared for what work was being done in this committee. But it was a very positive work and a lot of comments, and I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, and we opened a door and made the awareness for the need for water funding across the state, and certainly crises. I mean, I went to Louisville, Kentucky to visit my kids and grandkids, and both of them, daughter and son, graduated from Caney, and they said, "Hey, Dad, I see Caney made the new, Louisville newspaper on, worst place in the nation, there. So the spotlight, and that's not, wasn't necessarily a good thing, but at least the spotlight has brought the awareness on water. And I think this committee's done a fantastic job opening the doors, and I applaud the three agencies for really working together. And this is what our intent was. And I think if we're going to solve problems, that's what we need to work together. And I think we need more funding. And I think we brought around some legislators that probably would not have supported additional funding for certainly staff and or water issues. Their eyes are a little more open now. So I think the committee in general, I think we can say we've done a good job on that, and thank certainly the staff.
I think Representative Black stated it very well. To build on Connie's analogy, we need a bigger boat, but at least at this time, I feel more comfortable that we have everybody in the same boat. And I applaud the agencies for working together and working with us. And we'll continue to work on it. This is just a beginning. We've got a long ways to go. This does sunset in little under 4.5 years. I think the members of the committee at that time will evaluate things and see where we need to go, hopefully in about 3 years. But there's some small corrections between now and then, and we'll keep working on that. But thank you very much to the agencies and everybody that's helped us on this. Any comments from our committee for our good? Seeing none, we are adjourned. We will meet next Tuesday. We have 2 presentations from GMDs, 1 and 4, and